This is part 2, episode 115. A soft, gentle voice lingered over the sky. The snowflakes across the sky suddenly paused when the voice spread. After which, they melted, forming visible ripples that spread out in all directions in a circular fashion. Xiao Yan, whose eyes were blood red, suddenly trembled when this gentle voice, that contained an ethereal feeling, reached his ears. The blood color within his eyes swiftly scattered, and the annihilation fire lotus in his hand quietly disappeared. Xiao Yang's throat vaguely rolled as his eyes slid to the distorted space with an expression of disbelief. This voice, almost a soul-deep familiarity. Even if Xiao Yan had forgotten his own voice, this voice, that had already been deeply imprinted in his heart, would never be forgotten by him. Zuna, Xiao Yang's throat rolled. A moment later, a soft muttering tone slowly unfurled from his mouth. The voice contained a false dreamlike feeling within it. The expression of being he, which had originally been indifferent, changed because of this sudden unexpected change. His eyes stared at the two elderly figures in front of the distorted space, and they immediately narrowed. While Bing his expression changed, his gaze landed on the distorted space. A delicate, green-colored figure slowly walked away from that spot. After which, she gently strode out of the distorted space in front of a countless number of eyes, appearing in this snowflake land. The green clothes on the lady's body were not luxurious. However, they faintly contained a distinguished aura that seemed to originate from nature. This kind of distinguishment was not that of an earthly aura. Instead, it was a noble aura that belonged to the overlord of this world. It was just like the bloodline of a king with a long history, and it had not vanished despite time. The figure's long black hair was randomly restrained by a pale purple ribbon, compliantly hanging along the moving figure's body. Occasionally, a gentle breeze would form and the black hair would flutter, emitting a feeling out of this world. The figure appeared as though she was a fairy who had accidentally entered the mortal realm, possessing an ethereal aura that did not allow others to hide. Many eyes were shifted up and paused on the flawless face of the green-clothed lady. Her white skin appeared as though it would break by just blowing over it, even though it contained an alluring, rosy redness. There was a gentle smile on her face that possessed the gentleness of a spring breeze. This smile was filled with an unusually magical aura. It was as though all the worries in one's heart would instantly disappear upon seeing her smile. This kind of lady appeared as though she was a fairy with the spiritual aura of the world covering her, causing her to appear perfect. The green-clothed lady slowly walked out of the distorted space. She did not look at Bing He. Instead, she slowly turned around in front of a countless number of eyes. Her bright pupils gently glanced at the young man behind her. An involuntarily sweet laugh was emitted when she saw the look of disbelief on the face behind her. The picture-like lady shifted her feet and arrived in front of Xiao Yang. She extended her clean, white, jade-like hand and gently pressed it on Xiao Yang's head. It was as though she was estimating his height. An alluring ripple finally rose within her bright pupils, which were usually as rippleless as an old well. Xiao Yang Gi. The girl stood prettily in front of Xiao Yang as everyone around watched. Her bright lips parted and a gentle voice as smooth as silk gently sounded. Xiao Yang widened his mouth. His heart trembled due to his excitement. However, his face did not show that he had lost himself. He watched that lady whom he had thought of frequently. During these few years, the girl back then had become extremely beautiful. Moreover, Xiao Yang was pleased to find that there was still a familiar feeling in her autumn water-like eyes that warmed his heart. The appearance of the lady in front of him had really changed. Her demeanor, strength, and face was sufficient for her to become the goddess within the hearts of many people. However, the moment Xiao Yang laid his eyes on her, he understood that regardless of how she had changed, she was still that little girl who liked to follow beside him and repeatedly call out Xiao Yang Gi. Xiao Yang's body gently trembled. A moment later, he was finally unable to endure the emotion that had been suppressed in his heart for many years. He took a step forward, extended his arms, and embraced the extremely beautiful lady in front of a countless number of exclamations. This sudden action of Xiao Yang had slightly surprised Zuna. Her small mouth emitted a soft gasp before a bright redness flew onto her face. She gently struggled for a moment before giving up. Both she and Xiao Yang were no longer the youths from back then. She could sense the emotions that had been suppressed in Xiao Yang's heart. This feeling caused warmth to appear in her eyes. The eyes of the two black-clothed elders, who had appeared earlier, suddenly revealed a sharpness the instant Xiao Yang hugged Zuna. However, after seeing that Zuna did not even put up the slightest resistance, they ended up facing each other. Immediately, they helplessly shook their heads. They were already somewhat aware of why Zuna had brought them along on this trip of hers out from the Jiu realm. However, they still felt some disbelief now that they had witnessed it with their own eyes. There was an unknown number of young, handsome men with monstrous talents within the Jiu clan, who were infatuated and attracted to her. However, all of them merely received an indifferent treatment. Even when she was occasionally chatting with a smile, there would be a cold indifference that kept one at a distance, being emitted from her. These two old men had never met any man who dared pour Zuna into an embrace in all these years. If this matter is to spread in the Jiu realm, it is likely that those brats would go crazy. A white-haired, black-clothed man rolled his eyes and involuntarily muttered, Miss Zuna's eyesight should be very good. From what I know, this person is a person from the Xiao clan. The other black-clothed, old man faintly added, Xiao clan. That person's descendant. The white-haired, old man was startled when he heard this. Immediately, his eyes were somewhat strange as he glanced at Xiao Yang. After which, he smiled and said, no wonder. However, even if this is the case, it isn't easy to obtain the acceptance of the Jiu clan. After all, he is merely that person's descendant and not that person himself. Moreover, young Miss is someone from the Jiu clan, whose bloodline has been the perfectly cared for nearly 1,000 years. Young Miss will know her limits with regards to this. It is useless for us, old fellows, to say anything. Hopefully, while these two were softly chatting, Tian Huazunja and the little fairy doctor behind Xiao Yang were startled by this scene. Tian Huazunja was still all right. He was merely surprised that Xiao Yang was acquainted with such a powerful person. The strength of the two black-clothed old men was something that even he could not see through. They were at the very least 2 stars higher than him. The little fairy doctor's eyes were stunned as she studied Xiao Yang's back. After which, she glanced at the person in Xiao Yang's embrace. A slight dimness flashed across her pretty eyes without being detected. She had occasionally heard Xiao Yang mention this lady named Zuna. From the tone he used when speaking about her, she was able to identify a hint of love. This caused her to be somewhat surprised. She clearly understood Xiao Yang's character. This fellow might appear warm, but he had seldom revealed such an emotion to anyone, especially a lady. This kind of love caused even the little fairy doctor to involuntarily feel some envy within her heart. Ever since she had been acquainted with Xiao Yang, she had only seen Xiao Yang reveal such an emotion once. The source of this emotion was the green-clothed lady in his embrace. Xiao Yang ruthlessly hugged the person in his embrace. The lady's gentle body had poured a kind of energy into his heart that had become somewhat tired after this battle. Zuna allowed Xiao Yang to hold her. Some pittiness flashed across her bright eyes. She was clearly aware just how difficult it had been for Xiao Yang after she had left. His clan was nearly destroyed, and his teacher was captured. These numerous blows had ruthlessly pressed down on his tender shoulders, causing Zuna to feel a pain in her heart for him. However, the thing that caused her to feel pleased was that Xiao Yang did not collapse in the face of these hardships. He stubbornly endured through them and slowly walked from the Jioma Empire to the Black Corner region, and from the Black Corner region to the Central Plains. Moreover, he had shined bright in the process. The current Xiao Yang was no longer that tender, young man, who could only rely on his heated blood to do things. Instead, he was a genuine expert. Xiao Yang Gi. Don't blame Zuna for not being beside you all these years. Zuna's gentle voice appeared to possess a demonic strength, causing the fatigue in Xiao Yang's heart to quietly disappear. His passion and liveliness suddenly recovered, because of her. Do you think of me as such an unreasonable person? Xiao Yang smiled. He gradually returned the emotions back into his heart. After which, he rubbed Zuna's head and relaxed his arm. After seeing this person once again, he felt as though his entire body was filled with an endless amount of strength. You are injured. Zuna's bright eyes suddenly paused on some blood traces on Xiao Yang's body. Her pretty eyes froze as she softly asked. Her voice might be gentle, but Xiao Yang keenly sensed the surrounding natural energy begin to quietly surge. The one who made me bleed currently has an injury that is 100 times worse than mine. Xiao Yang smiled. His finger pointed at a couple of deep pits, and some rubble within Yi City. Zana curled her mouth into a smile. Her beautiful pupils looked at the cold air permeating all around her. After which, she gently turned around. Her pretty eyes stared at Bing He a short distance away. A golden-colored flame slowly appeared in her bright eyes while her gentle voice slowly sounded, "Will you leave the subsequent matters to Zana?" Xiao Yang was surprised when he heard Zuna's words. However, he did not attempt to stubbornly maintain the so-called pride of a man. He gently nodded. Putting up a brave front could nicely be described as being hot-blooded, or it could also be described as being reckless. With Xiao Yang's experience, he would naturally not act like some ordinary young person right now, straining his neck and overexerting himself to endure on. If he did that, he would be laughed at by others. Be careful. The smile on Zuna's face became even richer when she saw that Xiao Yang did not reject her. She did not want Xiao Yang to form a clear distinction between them. Bing He, who saw their eyes gradually turn to him, looked at Zuna and frowned. He slowly demanded, "Who are you?" "This is a matter of my Ice River Valley." Bing He was naturally not a fool since he had been able to become the valley chief of the Ice River Valley and reach his current level. Ever since Zuna had appeared, he could tell that this lady has a strong background. However, the members of the Jiyu clan usually kept a low profile. Some ordinary people had never even heard of this clan, that originated from the primordial times. From this, one could tell just how low a profile the Jiyu clan kept. It was also due to this that Bing He had difficulty identifying Zuna's group when he saw them for the first time. After all, the Do-Chi continent was huge. There were as many experts as there were clouds. Even Bing He did not dare say he knew all the experts in the world. What an overbearing Ice River Valley. Zuna stared at Bing only to slightly grin. Bing He's expression slightly turned sour in the face of Zuna's laugh. He was naturally aware that the other party was not praising him. His gaze vaguely swept over the bodies of the two black-clothed, old men, and he immediately discovered that their strengths were equal to his. This venerable self only wants the woeful poison lady. If he is your friend, this venerable self can let bygones be bygones. However, I will definitely not let off that woeful poison lady. Bing His gaze flashed across the two black-clothed, old man before pausing on the little fairy doctor. Finally, he spoke in a solemn manner. He was naturally able to tell that this mysterious lady and the brat called Xiao Yang possessed a deep relationship. Zuna's bright eyes swept over the little fairy doctor when she heard this. Coincidentally, the little fairy doctor's eyes had also shot over. Both ladies' gazes interacted in the air. There was an unknown feeling within both of their eyes. A moment later, they turned away without leaving a trace. "Valley Chief Bing, you cannot let that Xiao Yang off." Qinghai by the side hurriedly yelled out when he saw the situation. Xiao Yang was a person the Chief of the Hall of Souls had personally ordered to capture. How would he return an account to his superiors if Xiao Yang were allowed to leave? "You should act by yourself if you wish to capture him." Bing His expression sank as he quietly scolded this old fellow for not understanding the situation. He dared to cry out loud right now. Qing Hao's expression also changed slightly upon hearing Bing His reprimand. A chill flashed across his eyes. Immediately, he let out a cold snort. He was an honorable elder from the Hall of Souls. Although he was courteous to Bing He, it did not mean he needed to grovel to him. "The two of you need not argue. You will not be able to bring anyone away from here. Grab your people and leave this city within 1 minute, and I will allow you to leave." Zuna raised her pretty eyes and faintly instructed these two, who had already started to bicker among themselves before the battle had started. Bing His and Qing Hai's expressions became a little ugly when they heard Zuna's words. The factions they represented were not ordinary factions, especially the Hall of Souls behind Qing Hai. It was a great support that allowed him to do anything without feeling fear. The factions in the Central Plains that could cause the Hall of Souls to be afraid were existences that could be counted with one's fingers. Although those two black-colored elders had a great deterring effect, it was still insufficient to cause the both Bing He and Qing Hai to get lost just because they were told to. He, what an arrogant tone. It is really rare to find anyone in the Central Plains who dares to say such words to my Hall of Souls. Qing Hai's elderly face revealed a sinisterness. He laughed in a strange fashion. "Little girl, I would advise you not to end up letting the faction behind you offend an existence they cannot offend for a little man. These words might appear a little imposing if the Hall Chief of the Hall of Souls were to say them. However, you do not possess the qualification. Zuna's small mouth was lifted into a slight arc. She shook her head and spoke with a half-smile. There seemed to be very few existences that the Jiu clan could not afford to offend on this continent. There are still 30 seconds left. A slight gold-colored flame suddenly moved within Zuna's bright eyes. The expressions of Bing He and Qing Hai sank. A moment later, Bing He finally could not control himself as he coldly laughed. If he were to turn around and leave in such a dejected state, the Ice River Valley would really end up losing a great amount of face. It is the first time that I, Bing He, has met such an arrogant member of the younger generation, after having lived in this Central Plains for so many years. Bing He crackled in a dark and cold manner. The black-colored snowflake between his eyebrows flickered with an unusual luster. A black-colored cold air slowly surged out of his body. With a clench of his hand, a piece of black ice cracked as it extended out of his hand, transforming into an unusual black ice prick. The front of the ice prick was unusually sharp. Its entire body was even covered in a spiral pattern. At a glance, it contained a feeling that caused one's entire body to become cold. If one were struck by this thing, it was likely that a head-sized hole of blood would end up appearing on their body. Elders, Zuna's face did not reveal the slightest ripple in the face of Bing He's movement. Her eyes merely turned to the two black-clothed old men a short distance away. The two black-clothed elders hurriedly bowed and cupped their hands together upon hearing Zuna open her mouth. They smiled and said, "Young miss, please rest assured, leave it to the both of us." The white-haired, black-clothed old man turned his head after speaking. His eyes landed on Bing He as he laughed. "Cuckoo. I have long heard that Valley Chief Bing He has practiced the Ice Sun Force until its pinnacle. The old me really wishes to experience it." After the last word sounded, the white-haired old man stepped through space and appeared a short distance in front of Bing He. His face was filled with a warm smile. "Old fellow, since you have made your choice, just leave these two to me." The other black-clothed old man helplessly shook his head before turning his eyes to Qing Hai and Tian Shuangzi. Bing He's eyes were gloomy as he looked at the smiling white-haired old man in front of him. A denseness surfaced in his eyes. His foot stepped on empty air as a strange, black-colored ice cube appeared out of nowhere. After which, it transformed into a dozen long spears made of black ice that cut through the air and rushed toward the old man with lightning-like speed. The white-haired old man smiled upon seeing this. He clenched his hand and a mighty deep yellow dough chi surged explosively out of his body. It formed a thick mud wall in front of him, receiving those long spears made of black ice amid a wave of puffing sounds. "Young miss does not like to wait for people. The old me shall hurry and fight with you." The white-haired old man's foot stepped through the empty air. A deep yellow dough chi covered his body. It transformed into a ferocious-looking ground dragon, emitting wave after wave of roars. Finally, it was accompanied by another low roar as it swiftly shook the air and pounced toward Bing He. Even with Bing He's great strength, he had no choice but to treat such a fierce attack by the white-haired old man seriously. Immediately, the strange black ice pricks suddenly began to rotate at high speed, and they ruthlessly rushed toward the white-haired old man. The other black-clothed old man stepped through the empty air while the white-haired old man was attacking Bing He. Step by step, he walked toward Qing Hai and Tian Shuangzi. "Tian Shuangzi, the both of us should join hands and test this person. What do you say?" Qing Hai's expression became gloomier as he watched the black-clothed elder slowly approaching with each step. Finally, he uttered these words to Tian Shuangzi by the side with a deep voice. Tian Shuangzi glanced at the fierce battle between the white-haired old man and Bing He, who had clashed together. After which, he nodded. The current situation was not an optimistic one. Moreover, there were two other elite Dozuns, who had yet to join the fight. That mysterious green-colored lady did not appear ordinary. "I can only go all out." Tian Shuangzi clenched his teeth. Bing He had yet to give the order to retreat. Naturally, he dared not flee alone. Hence, all he could do was fight. Gan Da, attack and kill Xiao Yan. Qing Hai's expression was cold as he cried out a command to the few experts from the Hall of Souls. Gan Da's group, which had remained in the sky, were startled when they heard his order. Immediately, their faces contained a bitter smile. Currently, there were 2 elite Dozuns by Xiao Yang's side. Would they not be delivering themselves to death if they were to step forward? Although they thought like this in their hearts, none of them dared to disobey Qinghai's orders. They could only swiftly calm their minds. With a wave of a hand, all of them hurried to the spot where Xiao Yang and Zun Er were located. All elders of the Ice River Valley, listen up. Aid the Hall of Souls. Attack and capture Xiao Yang. Tian Shuangzi's cold cry sounded. Those Ice River Valley's elders in the sky faced each other when they heard this. All they could do was toughen their heads and rush out. Qinghai only nodded after seeing them move. His dark, cold eyes suddenly turned to the black-clothed, old man, who had already arrived in front of him. His gaze crossed with Tian Shuangzi, and he coldly laughed. Mighty Do Qi surged out of his body. With a swoosh sound, the 2 of them spread apart. After which, they moved their bodies and fiercely attacked the black-clothed man from both the front and back. While these 2 big battles had erupted, Gan Die's group had gradually formed a fan shape and spread apart. They surrounded Xiao Yang and Zun Er. No one dared to approach the little fairy doctor, or Qian Huozunja behind this pair. However, the 2 of them did not do anything either. They clearly understood that this mysterious, green-clothed lady was not ordinary. Xiao Yang's eyes swept around him. He slightly knit his brows. That expert from the Hall of Souls called Gan Die was not weaker than Protector Wu. There was naturally little need to feel any worry if this person was alone. However, there was currently many experts. Even an ordinary expert, at the peak of the Do Zone class, would not be able to endure. Just as Xiao Yang was hesitating about whether he should intervene or not, Zun Er gracefully shifted her feet. She slowly took a step forward and slightly curled her hand. A golden-colored liquid-like flame suddenly curled and rose. The expression of Xiao Yang changed when this golden flame appeared, because there was a heavenly flame uprising in his body at this moment. This is also a heavenly flame. Xiao Yang's eyes stared intently at the mysterious golden-colored flame in Zuna's hand. A flabbergasted expression gradually surged into his eyes. The golden-colored flame was just like liquid as it slowly flowed around Zuna's fingers. While it did so, the surrounding space formed some meandering spatial cracks following the outline of the flow. Xiao Yang's eyes stared intently at the golden-colored flame. The shock in his eyes was difficult to hide. It was not that he had never seen a heavenly flame, but this golden-colored flame in Zuna's hands caused him to feel afraid for the first time. When this golden-colored flame appeared, even the glazed lotus heart flame within his body emitted a slight trembling noise. It was the first time Xiao Yang had witnessed such a situation in all these years. Xiao Yang could understand the meaning behind the slight trembling sound emitted by the glazed lotus heart flame. This was fear. By being able to cause the glazed lotus heart flame to feel so afraid, it was obvious that the golden-colored flame in Zuna's hand was definitely not an ordinary heavenly flame. After all, the glazed lotus heart flame was the product from the merger of the green lotus core flame and the fallen heart flame. Although it was not ranked on the heavenly flame ranking, it should be able to enter the top 10 if one were to rank it. Even a heavenly flame of such an existence felt afraid, because of Zuna's golden-colored flame. Just how terrifying was this thing? On the heavenly flame ranking, there are only 2 types of flames with a golden color among the top 10 spots. One is the 9 quiet gold ancestral flame, that is ranked 7th, and the other is the gold emperor incinerating heavenly flame, that is ranked 4th. I wonder just which one of these flames is Zuna's flame. Xiao Yang mused within his heart. Of course, he could not be completely certain. The heavenly flame ranking was a great authority. However, there were a countless number of mysterious items in this world. Many people believed that there were more heavenly flames than what was recorded on the heavenly flame ranking. Therefore, Xiao Yang could not be certain that the golden-colored flame Zuna was using was one of these 2 heavenly flames. The golden-colored flame flowed around Zuna's finger in an agile manner while her eyes slightly shifted. She looked at the experts from the Hall of Souls and Ice River Valley around. A faint smile was revealed on her elegant and alluring face. Attack. Gan Die's group felt an uneasiness rising in their hearts the moment the golden-colored flame appeared. However, there was no reason for them to pull back now. Over a dozen people maneuvered their Do Qi at the same time. After which, they transformed into many frightening Do Qi pillars that launched at Xiao Yang and Zuna from all directions. That scene was indeed a little majestic and grand. Enormous Do Qi pillars cut through the sky and instantly arrived. Zuna raised her hand gently, and her small mouth gently blew on the golden flame. The golden-colored flame suddenly swelled with the wind after Zuna blew on it, transforming into a golden-colored flame barrier that wrapped around both Xiao Yang and her. Many Dochi pillars ruthlessly smashed into this golden-colored flame barrier. Although they caused numerous ripples to appear, the attacks ultimately did not scatter the flame barrier. One could tell what kind of terrifying defensive strength this flame barrier possessed. The expressions of Gan Da and the others changed a little when they saw their combined attacks easily blocked by Zuna. Before they could attack once again, however, Zuna slowly raised her head. A golden-colored flame flashed across her autumn water eyes. What is this flame? The life force within the bodies of the experts from the Hall of Souls and the Ice River Valley swiftly disappeared. Their bodies swayed and finally fell head first in front of the many stunned gazes below. The golden-colored fire light did not appear to be overly accurate. Hence, not everyone's hearts had been penetrated. Some of those who had luckily avoided being killed, like Gan Da, did not even wait for Zuna to speak. They hurriedly withdrew with terrified faces. Only at this moment did they understand that this young, green-clothed lady was even more terrifying than the man beside her. After only one exchange, all the experts from the Hall of Souls and the Ice River Valley were either killed or injured. This scene caused the hearts of many to be covered with a chilly air. Just where did this demon lady come from? How could she be so frightening? Zuna slightly widened her small mouth after randomly defeating Gan Da's group. After which, she swallowed the frightening, golden-colored flame into her body. She turned her head, saw Xiao Yang's stunned face, and involuntarily curled her lips into a gentle smile. It seems that you have been walking ahead of me, Xiao Yang spoke with a bitter smile when he saw Zuna looking over. Originally, he had thought that his achievement was already quite great. However, after seeing her tactics today, he finally understood that there was always those who were stronger. Xiao Yang Ge cannot put it this way. Zuna relies on the bloodline of her ancestor, yet you have relied on your own strength to reach this stage. If we were to really compare, 10 Zuna cannot be compared with you. Zuna softly laughed. Xiao Yang felt a little better in his heart after hearing Zuna's comforting words. He could only helplessly sigh when it came to these matters. He had no choice. Zuna was born with a better background. It seems that Zuna's warning does indeed have a reason. From the attitude these people use for her, she likely possesses an extremely high position in the Jiyu clan. If I do not possess a strength that would cause this Jiyu clan to take me seriously, attempting to stay beside her would likely be utter nonsense. Xiao Yang slowly clenched his fist. With his current Dozong strength, he was far from the strength the Jiyu clan required to view him seriously. With Xiao Yang's current strength, he would have to use all of his abilities just to deal with an expert at the peak of the Dozong class. Therefore, he needed to raise his strength as quickly as possible. Attempting to increase his strength would mean that Xiao Yang had to find a new heavenly flame as soon as possible. There is less than a year's time until the start of the pill gathering. Moreover, there will be a complicated selection process. Hence, this timing will have to be brought forward. Xiao Yang gently exhaled a breath of air. In order to raise his strength as fast as possible, he needed to obtain the 3,000 burning flames of the pill tower. Xiao Yang once again raised his head after making up his mind. His eyes landed upon the battle between the white-haired, old man and Bing He. At this moment, the both of them were having an intense fight. Dark black lines repeatedly appeared in the empty space where the both of them had exchanged blows. The frightening energy ripples caused the hearts of a countless number of people to tremble. Bang! Two figures collided in a lightning-like manner in the sky. A loud, soul-stirring sound erupted. However, that white-haired, old man heartily laughed. His shriveled palm suddenly shot out a green crystal glow. Numerous mysterious hand seals were formed. He received the sky-burying seal from this old me. Xiao Yang's brows were suddenly lifted when he heard the loud laugh of the white-haired man. Sky-burying seal. The fourth seal of the God Seal skill. Bing He was also stunned because of the cry from the white-haired man. Sky-burying seal. This name was a little familiar. Sky-burying seal. God Seal skill. This thought swiftly flickered in Bing He's heart before his body suddenly trembled. An aghast expression was finally revealed. His eyes gathered on the green-colored figure in the distance. She is actually a member of the Jiyu clan. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.